Yo, maniacs, this is Hulk Hogan, the greatest of all time, and you're listening to The Blaze, 1260 AM. So what you gonna do when Hulk Hogan in Blaze-a-Mania runs wild on you?
He's one of my favorite people that I've ever met in pro wrestling, and genuinely one of the nicest guys I've ever met in the whole world. Rugged Rod Price, are you with me, sir?
Yes, sir, James. Thank you for having me. The check's in the mail for the good compliment. Nicest guy in the world, man.
Well, you are. I mean, I've seriously, I've been done this almost 900. You're 890 of my interviews list today. That's what number we're up to. I can honestly say I can't think of a nicer person that I've interviewed, so I appreciate that. I appreciate you. All right, man. Well, we're having you on. Let's talk about the what's going on right now first, and then we'll walk our way back through your career and do some career highlights, too. East Texas Wrestling Alliance is happening on August 2nd. Big show going to be happening. You're going to be there for the meet and greet as well as helping out back behind the scenes. What's your thoughts on East Texas Wrestling and their big show on August 2nd?
Well, I work with Mike Andrews is promoting. I work with Mike quite a bit. I knew his dad. I knew I've worked with Mike. Just a long-standing relationship, always good. The last thing I did with Mike was Black Bart's, I guess, fundraiser.
Yeah.
And that was, maybe a year or two ago in of August, and it was outstanding show. They had matches afterwards, but the meet and greet, the boys that showed up, man, just gave all their effort and love for Bart, and donated. I mean, every penny they made, they gave it to Bart, because of medical bills and so forth. I thought it was just fantastic.
Absolutely. And I was a small part of that, helping promote the press releases and post that out there. And I even had a chance to talk to Bart after it, and you could hear in his voice how much that night meant to him. That was huge to him.
Well, I don't know yet. I don't know if you know, you may, but when I first got there, Bart was behind the table, and he was white as a ghost, man. And I came up, and I would talk to Linda. I said, "What's going on?" And he was having a bad reaction to the insulin. His sugar dropped real low.
Oh, wow.
He ended up passing out. They called the paramedics, and they came out. They had to give him. They actually gave him sugar water to get his blood sugar right. They changed his medicine, and he had a bad reaction. And I was like, "Come on, Lord, we didn't come here to see him pass away in front of us as a benefit, And
if I remember, you sent me a message during that, and you basically told me that he's not looking good. This isn't good, and I thought, "Uh-oh, what's going to happen?" But then I heard good stories about it, and I heard JBL. Bart even told the story. JBL would go sign some autographs and walk up to Bart with fistfuls of cash and just hand it to him. And I mean that
absolutely. And JBL gave him $2,000.
Wow.
Right up front. And everything else he gave him, was the gravy. But I had missed JBL on a lot of these events. Either he came late and I left early, or he left early and I came later. So when he came, I was excited to see John. John's one of my very good friends in life, and I just happened to be walking over there. I didn't interrupt in the business, but I saw John just hand him a lot of cash right up front.
Very cool. It's a small thing, but for the rest of my life, I'm going to have a shelf, a spot on the shelf for everything from that night. I got a ticket stub from that night. I got a signed book from Bart, and I got a T-shirt, and I got it in a box frame behind me. And it's all because of Mike Andrews. He did a great job with that event to help his friend. And we lost Bart last year. I think I might have been his final interview, and that's an honor that I can't even express. One of the nicest guys. It may be rivaling you in terms of the nicest guys in wrestling.
And totally worthy. You know, I kept in touch with Bart all the way up till last time I talked to him, he was at home. He just got home from the hospital, and he was just in pain. His wife was giving him morphine shots to try to, keep the pain level down. And, I kept it brief. I just wanted to call and tell you I love you. I'll see you in heaven, brother.
Oh, man. God bless you. Well, well, it's been kind of one of those weeks where we're kind of all starting on a downer note with the passing of Ozzy Osbourne and Hulk Hogan yesterday, which, he was my favorite growing up and remaining.
He was my hero. He's the reason I got into wrestling.
That kind of was not my next question, but the question after this, so I'll start there. What attracted you to the world of professional wrestling? Being a legitimate athlete, coming from the NFL, what about pro wrestling reached out to you that was something you wanted to do?
Jan, I'd always been a fan of wrestling since I was a kid. And through life in college playing football, I always kept up. That's when, it was early 80s and WWF was starting to get hot. And, of course, NWA, watching all that. But I saw Rocky III. Mm-hmm. I was 20 years old, and I went and saw Rocky III. And when Hulk Hogan came out as Thunder Lips, man, he had me hook, line, and sinker, man. I was like, that night during watching that movie, that night I decided
that was it.
Into professional wrestling.
My dog is named Meatball because he was this tiny little thing, and I said, it's the ultimate male versus the ultimate meatball. And I thought, that's the name. That's my dog's name. He's Meatball. And ironically, he got really heavy, so he actually, the name fits him now. But yeah, that's from that movie. That's where my dog's name came from.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, definitely was an inspiration to me to become a fan in '85. I tell this online all the time, but it was him and JYD just hamming it up. And I was just a little kid, I'm probably in kindergarten. Uh-huh. And he's hamming it up in the ring, and I didn't know anything about wrestling, but I knew I liked it. And from there, here I am 40 years later, literally, and wrestling has been basically a big portion of my life ever since.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I'll guarantee you there's thousands of wrestlers that got into the business because of Hulk Hogan.
I agree. So something you don't talk about a lot online, maybe it's because you're tied more to wrestling, but you don't talk about a lot about your NFL career. I know that you love football. I know that you go to the USC games whenever you get the chance. I know it's in the blood. Yeah. But what was it like playing in those massive stadiums in the NFL and being a signed NFL player?
Well, my NFL career, I spent most of my time on the practice squad. I started in '84. I went to Long Beach State. I got scholarship. I spent a spring there, and the coaches left. I came there on promises, and one of the main reasons why I picked Long Beach State, they played in Anaheim Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
They had local TV. They played USC and UCLA. That was scheduled every year.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got there, they changed. They dropped Anaheim Stadium. They lost the TV. They redid their schedule, and it just, I was bitter, man. I was like, this is not what I was promised. This is not what I was told. And they went from playing in Anaheim Stadium to there's a field in Long Beach that was called Veterans Stadium. Mm-hmm. And James, I'm telling you, I played at better high school stadiums than this was.
Really?
And I told my coach, I go, you got to be kidding. He's like, no, well, we're going through a transition. We're going to do things better. And by the end of that spring, all the coaches left. They went to Cincinnati. And I was like, no way. I was like, so I butted out. I got out in spring. I left in the spring of '83. And I was like, wrestling, I said, maybe it's time to get into wrestling. So I started checking into wrestling and got a hold of Red Bass team, Bill Anderson, and Mondo Guerrero.
Wow. There's that name again, Bill Anderson. Bill Anderson is a local Arizona guy, by the way. Me. And I keep bugging him. To do an interview. I know he's got some health issues, but I keep bugging him.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll beat him into submission one day, but I think he was. That's.
But I talked to one of my coaches. I came out of San Bernardino Valley College, and one of my coaches said, "Hey, man, I know a coach for the Rams." Mm-hmm. He said, I'm going to give him a call, and I want you to go down there in person and talk to him. And I was like, I'm in. So, the long story short, they gave me a tryout, and I hardly ever mention it, but that's when I met Leon White. He was
Vader.
Playing with the yep. And I just kind of, went through being on a practice squad. You're expendable. But I played nose tackle, I played guard, I played center, and I long snap, and I played defensive end. And back in the day, because of that, I was cheap, plus I could play different positions. So that was one of the main reasons, they kept me around. Went through training camp, went through preseasons all the way up to week 6. Because back then training camp was 8 weeks, and because I was on special teams, it was 3 practices a day, and it was every day. You didn't get a day off. It's not like today.
No. And now they want it to a certain amount of hours per week, and the starters almost don't even play in the preseason games. I mean, there's a lot of prima donna things going on these days.
Very much, and it was always, the first 2 games you played. The third game, the starters did maybe a quarter, and then everybody else got in the game. Fourth game, the starters played a half, and then the rest of them, if you were on the bubble, which I was, they, you played second half, and they said, hey, it's do or die. So I made it through. I got cut after the last, when we broke camp, I got cut. But they said, hey, be in shape, stay in shape. So I went and played semi-pro. And you talk about, it was brutal in camp. Semi-pro is just crazy. They called it was in Compton. Everything
Oh,
was in
man.
LA,
Okay.
and all the games were played in Compton, and they called it the Jungle League. And brother, it was a jungle. It was a fight every day. But I was there 2 weeks, and I got the call back to the Rams. They needed a long snapper, a backup long snapper. So I came back and hung around for about 6 weeks. They got another guy that was a tight end and could long snap, and he was like second string tight end. So I was like, I knew my time was numbered. So I got cut again, and I went back to the Jungle League and played. And then, $350 a week back then was a lot of money. So I was happy to have it. Awesome. And then 85 came. I had at the end of towards the end, I hurt my knee. I ended up having 3 arthroscopics like in a row, almost back to back. And I got a hold of the Rams, and I said, through my agent, I said, are you going to bring me back? And they were like, well, we'll see. So never got that call. So 85, I spent pretty much playing semi-pro and getting into wrestling, and started wrestling, local independent shows, and worked around Southern California, worked around a little bit in Las Vegas, and that kind of kept me going. 86, I got a call from the Chargers to come play. They needed a long snapper. Hung on with them for about almost 8 weeks in 86, and went back to wrestling and playing semi-pro. And then come 87, the Chargers brought me back for backup for long snapper. They actually had me playing long snapper, and I was a backup left guard. Mm-hmm. So
that's pretty.
It was a good thing. It was a good thing. I enjoyed it, and I went through. Was there all the way up to about week 11, and had enough. My knee started acting up, and they were gonna. It was either cut me or put me on IR, and they didn't want to pay me, so they cut me. Mm. So I went and of course, they took care of my knee. And after that, I went back, finished out semi-pro, got more involved in wrestling. And then 88, I had a opportunity to go to San Francisco. And my knee was so bad by then, it was, affects I never had time to heal, so it affected my speed. So I was in San Francisco for about three preseason games, and then I just on my own, I just said I'm done. And after that, I went in straight into professional wrestling. In fact, I moved from. I left San Francisco, came back to Southern California, got my stuff, and moved to Texas.
Very good. And when you talk to people about Rod Price, they always say he's a Texas mainstay, a mainstay of Texas wrestling, and that kind of is where you cut your niche. There's a question coming up later on. I guess I'll ask it now, though. I recently interviewed Frank Dusek. And Frank Dusek was talking. Yep, and he was talking about the merger of Memphis Wrestling and the USWA and World Class. And basically, he said that the Dallas fans didn't want any of that Memphis stuff. They wanted tough guys in the Texas wrestlers, and they didn't appreciate the Memphis style. You worked both. Would you say that there's some truth to that?
Absolutely. I've said that in a lot of podcasts. It's like, Texas was rough, stiff style And when Memphis came in, it was, all about comedy and it was more lighthearted. And Dallas fans they just crapped all over it. It was horrible.
Now, you worked both places. Was it easier on the body to work the Memphis style, or was it, did you not like that as much, working that more of a, I don't know, character comedy style?
Jim, you're working, worked Dundee. Was married with him for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So the Giant Killer was, and of course, Bill, I respected him so much, but it was, he's not gonna be bumping and throwing himself around and all that. It was all walk and talk. And then Steve and I were wrestling together, and we tagged, and they worked it. It was a good push, but it just I've been through Memphis twice by then. I worked their territory twice. It was just crazy. The first time the pay was so bad, I was like, I told Jerry Jarrett, I said, look, man, I know the houses aren't great, but I can't afford to work for you. So I left, I don't know, probably after 6-8 weeks going through that territory. I was like, I can't afford to work for you. And I made more money working around Dallas and Oklahoma than I did working 6 days a week with Jarrett.
I believe it. I was almost going to start the interview by asking if you were out with Steve throwing rocks. If you remember, there was a weird promo.
Oh yeah. That was a Gary Hart just brainstorm. He had his. He liked doing that type of promos, especially to introduce his guys, and we were fresh. So he had us do that. We were throwing rocks and this and that. And then after we did that, he said, look, go to Hooters. I've got to do a couple more of these promos.
Uh-huh.
He said, just eat, drink your hearts out till I get there, and then we'll shoot another promo. Well, man, it was, when we left, it was like maybe 4:00. Time Gary got there, it was like 9:30, and Steve and I we were three sheets, man. We were like, well, he said he's coming.
Very cool. So one of your first known tag team partners was Steve Austin, and we all know Steve Austin went on to be just a massive superstar, probably the face of the WWE at the end of the 90s, early 2000s. Did you see that in him, and what did you think of his rise to fame, the way that he skyrocketed at the end of the 90s there?
I have so much admiration and respect for Steve. He earned everything. I saw him go through Memphis starving to death. And he worked hard. He had such a mind for the business, and when he got they wanted us to go back. I'll back up a little bit. They wanted us to go back and tag and go through Memphis again. Mm-hmm. And this was probably like 90, maybe 91. Had to be 90. And they wanted us to go through and tag. Jarrett said, I'll guarantee you $500, a week. I was like, all right. And I had, on the back burner, I had a deal cooking with Japan where I'd be able to go on a regular to Japan. And I told him, well, let me think about it. And he said, well, we need an answer tonight. And I I just decided that Japan was going to pay a lot more than $500 a week. So it was a money decision for me, and it worked out for Steve. You know, he finished up with them and went right into WCW after that.
There you go. Seems like Japan in that time, you mentioned already Leon White Vader, that Japan would have been a perfect spot for you. And that style, the Smash Mouth style that you had and all that, was it a lot different working Japan than say Dallas or is it very similar because, like you said earlier, Dallas was a lot of the tough, hard-hitting guys?
Well, for me, it was because, you know, I always worked. Everybody says, "Oh, you were stiff." I always say, "No, I was snug. I never clubbed anybody in the face. I never hurt anybody in the ring." Japan was like that. They did the strong style, and you know, there was no corporate there. You know, you didn't have to worry about somebody stooging you out or whatever. It was, you go there, you work hard, get paid, go home. And that was so appealing to me. I was like, because before that, I'd met, you know, when WWF would come down to Dallas at the old Reunion Arena, you know, I'd go down, meet the boys, talk with the guys. And my impression, these guys were so miserable. You know, it looked like they were in prison. You know, they were just miserable. And I was like, you know, for me, it was like, I know they're making money, and, you know, God bless them. They're working 350 days a year. But you got to have some happiness in there, you know. You just, if you hate coming to work, that eventually that's going to wear on you. And for me, Japan was a better choice because I didn't have that, you know, I didn't feel like I had that hammer hanging over my head with having to deal with the corporate. You know, I wasn't. I didn't play the game well because I didn't kiss ass, and I just in Japan they didn't care. Go work hard, we'll pay you, and I was good with that.
That's good. Global Wrestling Federation, such a huge part of my generation's childhood. Mm-hmm. I've talked to Tony Khan. I've talked to Tom Lawler. They all say the same thing. They say, you know, they lived to get home for 4 o'clock to watch Global Wrestling on ESPN.
Yeah.
And that was a huge part of it. You were a huge part of Global. It's strange, though. As time has gone by, it seems like it maybe doesn't get the respect that it deserves for how big it was, how many people were watching it throughout the whole country. What do you think is the legacy of the GWF, and why do you think it doesn't get the respect it probably deserves?
The respect part is, I guess, because I always hated that. Well, if you're not in the WWF or WWE, then you're not part of wrestling. Mm-hmm. And I never bought it, and that may be part of it, but it was such a huge fill-in for so many people. So many people's lives were, I'm talking, young, back then, young kids. I can't tell you the number of people that came up and said, man, you just don't know what you guys meant to us, because, they were going through things at home or school or whatever. He said you were such, GWF was such an outlet, it was their escape from whatever trouble they were having. And I've had people who just, they were almost in tears thanking me. And I told Tatum, it's like, you just don't know how many people you affect in your life with what you do, and it meant so much to so many people. And those people loved it. And you got to remember too, James, we were I called it the after school special.
Right.
We were handicapped on what we could do.
Oh, you mean the crowd shots whenever you guys did anything dastardly or anything violent?
Blood, all that, all the Texas style stuff.
Yep, there was the fireball as well. Eddie Gilbert with the fireball as well. They cut that.
Yeah, it was all edited because, I guess the time slot or what they were trying to do. Now we did a local Texas for the local Texas station there.
KTVT, right?
Yes, and we could do our regular. But there was so much good footage on the editing floor, man. A lot of it got snipped. And I remember later on, I was watching on YouTube. It was like, man, they cut out some of the best parts of the matches. I mean, I guess it was too violent. Or
when they had it on ESPN Classic, I used to watch it all the time. Like I'd have it on those 12-hour rotations. They'd have it on, and I'd leave it on, and my wife would walk in, and she'd see, Akbar would grab a guy's leg, and they'd cut to the crowd shot instead of just seeing him, tripping a guy. And I'm like, ugh. And she said it reminds her when they used to air WCW on non-cable TV in the UK. They'd have Nash kneeing a guy in the corner, and they'd do the Batman signs, the pow, wham. And I think she said it reminds her of that, and I think it's true.
I know, and I don't know. Maybe that's part of us not getting the respect we deserve.
But there was some great stuff in there, and some of the best stuff on there was you and Hollywood John Tatum teaming up. You mentioned him. It was an honor for me to have him on to promote the Black Bart show a couple years ago. What was your memories of teaming with the great Hollywood John Tatum?
Oh, you know what? I sent him a text today. Just I've been busy. My wife's getting ready to have back surgery.
Oh.
Been busy taking her to the doctor and trying to do other things around the house and out in the yard and all that. And hadn't really talked to John in a while because I got busy. And I texted him today just to say how much I appreciated him then and how much more I appreciate him now. John was a great wrestler, underrated. He knew the business. He knew how to work, how to get people over. He knew the psychology, and it was such a pleasure to spend time with John and have that part in my life.
He was so good too. He was so good in that ring.
Yeah, I really love John.
I was disappointed that he didn't have the memory of super kicking Sebastian off the apron, because that was freaking awesome.
You know what? I'm surprised they even showed it.
All right, so I got to ask you, the behind the scenes of Global often gets talked about with the African Prince or whatever it was, and the promised money, and I think Cornette calls it the smoking the hopium, about a big bond you guys were going to get money-wise. That didn't come, and unfortunately when it didn't, Joe Pedicino kind of was done with Global, and it seemed like the company changed a lot there. Was there a noticeable change for you guys behind the scenes when things like that were going on and Joe Pedicino was finished up and you had different leaders coming in?
Yeah, I would rather be not told that big things are coming. We really got, when this goes through, talk about raises, talk about this, talk about, pumping us up. And then all of a sudden, when it doesn't happen, everybody just kind of disappears.
Yeah, it was.
And then you're left wondering, what's going on. But yeah, there was a major change because the Atlanta guys were getting paid for trans, and of course none of them were going to come. And the changing of the guard with Max Andrews and Greg Pearson, it was it was good. I'm thankful for Greg Pearson. They stepped in and kept it going. It could have GWF as a whole could have been a lot huger, if that's a word.
We're going to make it one. That works.
Okay. If it would have been done a little better, if they would have put a little more effort into sponsorship and promoting the promotion, they could have. It could have been going huge, and Kerry came back too, and that was a huge boost. That could have been something very special. And in fact, who knows? It still could be going today, but unfortunately, what happened to Kerry and the way the business transactions and this and that, it was a good run. I enjoyed every minute. I had a blast, but it's sad because it's one of those what ifs.
It is, and it definitely is, and I think that story just hasn't been told about all the ups and downs of Global. I wish somebody would put it together because that would be a good read, a good book, if they did.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to do it. Maybe I'll do it. Who knows?
Man, you're the man. You should, James.
Maybe I will. I actually have thought about it before. I want to ask you this question, and I know it's a little bit of a. I'm not trying to play gotcha, and I don't know if you love talking about it, but you had some brutal matches with gentleman Chris Adams. I got the feeling that he wasn't the most cuddly of guys, and especially with the things he did. What was your thoughts on working with Chris Adams?
Chris was. I enjoyed working with Chris, and it just, some days he was, the best person you've ever met, and other days he was just like, who is this guy? And I enjoyed our matches. Our matches were Texas style. We were rough, and we laid it in. And I'm sorry, about the hair pulling incident that Chris did. And to this day, I still don't know why he did it.
Speaking of things that they did on TV, that aired on like TV, but they aired it like very edited, and that might have been one that had to be because it was uncomfortable. But I was surprised that made it to. If it wasn't ESPN, it was some kind of sports channel. That was crazy. I have let's see here. I have the next one I have for you is Bodyguards and Bandits. The pay-per-view.
Yeah.
It didn't make a whole lot of sense, I'm going to be honest with you. But for people like me, it was like, okay, we're going to get the Sportatorium, and we're going to get the big red ring, and we're going to get some of the guys that we know from Global. So I'm buying this thing.
Well, you were probably one of the other 11 that did.
The Bodyguards and Bandits, for those who don't know, they kind of tried to tie it in with the Super Bowl, but then they had Boom Boom Mancini talking about Alcatraz, which was, not anywhere near the Sportatorium, and I didn't know what was going on with that thing. What was that one like? And you've also mentioned...
You know what, James? That kind of summed up that pay-per-view.
Now, you did mention something about Roddy Piper was there. Was that true? Was Roddy Piper backstage or something at that event?
At that event, no, I don't remember him being there.
Okay, I was going to say, because if you have Piper there, I mean, I guess it would cost a fortune to get him on the show.
Piper would have been, he would have been mentioned or even headlined. So,
yeah, that was an interesting one.
That thing was, it was doomed to fail from the beginning, because I'm like, they're building up to this with us before the pay-per-view, and it's like, well, have these guys ever wrestled? No, I said, why don't we get them in the ring and, kind of rehearse things before this pay-per-view? And they looked at me like that was the stupidest idea that they ever heard. And when I heard that, I was like, okay,
oh, boy.
All right.
But it did have some good people there. I think Scott Putski was there. JBL was part of it.
Yeah.
Yourself, of course. There was some talent, but I guess it was the other guys that kind of made it an impossibility.
Oh, my goodness. They didn't have a clue. They did not have a clue. And the guy that I put over, I had to pick him up and fall him, dump him on myself to get the pin.
You basically had him pin you. It was like it was like watching when a kid wrestles a pillow and he pulls the pillow on. So I interviewed Del Rios fairly recently, and he was talking about the final days of Memphis Wrestling, which you were part of, because you were part of, with James Beard. You guys went up to Dallas, went up to Memphis, and there was a whole lot going on behind the scenes with the sale of the company and then a whole lot of stuff. But he kind of said that it felt like Dallas was taking over Memphis and things like that. What did you think of the final days of the USWA territory as we knew it?
Just chaos. I knew what was going on about 3 weeks into this thing. To me, it was total sabotage on Lawler's part to just bankrupt the people that bought the company, and they bought it for $1 million, and then they were going to bankrupt it and be able to buy it back cheap. And that was the whole thing.
I have a sneaking suspicion that's what Vince McMahon is up to now, but we'll talk about that later.
But it was horrible, because I really got to know Mark Selker was running it, and I really got to know him. And he was clueless, He was just like, what is going on? And sat down, tried to tell him James wasn't in on, what was really happening either. But when they started sabotaging, we were filming and taking the film to the TV studio, and then they were sabotaging the TV paper.
Oh, man.
And I was like, do you see now? And they're like, what is going on? I'm like, you're being sabotaged. Can't you see this?
Jesus. That's an unbelievable thing that they pulled there. And he said, Del Rio said they also changed the time slot, which they had for like 30 years or something like that. And that basically killed what was left of the audience.
That was, just for me, that was just part of the sabotage, Why do you change something that had been working for 30 years?
Exactly. So Cage Match, I did some research just to see if there was any odd questions I could ask you. And it has you wrestling Rocky Maivia in the WWF on a WWF Raw before in a dark match. Did you know that he was going to be what he became?
The Rock, yeah. A little months to be known, but they didn't like, when he first came in, they didn't like the name, so they kind of wanted to change it around, wanted to do other things with it. But there in Memphis, I got to work with Kane. I got to work with of course, all ECW guys. That was my connection with that. But working with The Rock, yeah, to me, I saw the same thing I saw in Steve Austin. He had that raw talent and charisma that you don't develop, you already have it.
Yep, I agree. All right, well, let's see here. So the next question I have for you is, in a private conversation between you and I, you talked to me about ECW, and I was surprised because when I think Rod Price, the first thing I picture is you in that big red ring and Global. But you said the most fun you ever had in wrestling was in ECW. What was so fun about ECW?
I think because it was total chaos. We like every other promotion I've ever worked for, you'd go there, you'd get there if you had to be there an hour or 2 hours before or whatever. And the matches were posted and set. I go to ECW and, it's 15 minutes of bell time and they're working out the card. So that was chaos, or that was just like, what? But, I enjoyed working with the guys. It was fun because of the madness of it. And the fans were just over the top, man. Those fans loved hardcore. And when they tried to, when they were softening it up to try to get I think it was TNN, is that right?
Yeah, TNN, which became Spike TV, which is now the Paramount Network. But yep, that's what it was.
Okay.
Yep.
And, of course, they were trying to soften it up and, be more of a legit wrestling thing. And boy, the fans were just like crapping on it. So whenever we did a house show and stuff, and I had an opportunity to work with Sabu or New Jack or something, I said, man, come on, let's give them old ECW. And they went crazy and loved it. And the fans were awesome. Fans were great. After matches, when we snuck in, the juice and the chairs and tables and all that, the fans would come up and say, man, yeah, you're keeping it real. You're keeping it real. But I had a lot of fun in ECW.
Very cool. There's a lot of stories about the roster and the traveling, pharmacy that it might have been and all that kind of stuff. Was there any truth to that, or is that kind of blown out of proportion, like, stories about the Rolling Stones?
Well, James, that was with every promotion. Okay. That was there regardless, because boys were working every night, boys were hurting. So
it wasn't any more prevalent there? Or
it wasn't any more prevalent than it was in WWE when I was there.
Very cool. So I was doing my research, like I said, and I read a site that said guys that you forgot worked for ECW, and you were number 2 on that list. And they said that they felt you could have done more, but you had sustained a serious neck injury that limited what you were willing to do or able to do. What are they talking about? What was the neck injury? Was there one, or what had occurred?
Yeah, I had a bulging disc, and I was working. I worked Mike Andrews, and Mike Andrews' finish was dropping somebody over the table, from the top rope through a table.
Oh wow!
And I said, Mike, no disrespect from you, but man, I gotta protect myself, because one bad thing, I'm going out on a stretcher, paralyzed. And Mike was, Mike's like, I understand. So they threw in, I forgot the kid's name, but they threw in a manager that took that ball.
Oh man. So why was your stint in ECW so short? Was it just because of the injuries that were mounting up, or?
Yeah, I think that, and I think I saw kind of the writing on the wall with ECW. They were the regular guys were really complaining about not getting paid. They hadn't been paid in a while, and with that, and kind of I knew my days were numbered because I was a side dish with ECW. I told Paul, I'll do anything to get the company over. And Paul took care of me. Even when I didn't work, he paid me. I was in the back watching the monitor, helping the guys out. They'd ask me, well, what do you think we should do? And, not that I created any talent back there, but I had the input, and they respected me enough to have the input. And, I enjoyed it. And I think it was 2000, that's when a lot of people, they would call you up on a Tuesday and say, okay, your ticket for going to Boston will be at the counter. And my tickets were there, but Gang went there and his ticket wasn't there, and some other guys, they started cutting back. And when I saw that, it was I've been around long enough to know that something's up, and the funds are dwindling. So I just come 2000, they kind of were cutting my days. So I said, hey, I appreciate the run. I appreciate being here. I understand, and it was time for me to move on.
Very cool. Well, you're still involved in wrestling. All these years later, you're going to be helping out with East Texas Wrestling, Mike Andrews. We come back full circle. East Texas Wrestling, the style of pro wrestling has changed a lot. ECW might have been the precursor or the catalyst for that change, but there's a lot of smaller guys now. A lot of guys doing a lot more flips and things like that. What do you think of the change of wrestling towards that more acrobatic style?
Well, I was thinking the other day, James, I try to watch what they're doing, and it's so beyond me. But, I'm thinking, well, where do they go from here? Once that plays out, where they go? What are you going to do? You've given them every high spot, every flip, all these acrobatics. I go, what's left?
I agree. Do you watch any of the stuff now? I know you kind of just said you do, or you did, or try to anyway.
Yeah, I'll watch. I'll tell you the truth. I really like WOW wrestling, women wrestling.
I can't believe you just said that, because I almost said that a second ago. WOW is my favorite because it's just wrestling. It's
it's old school. They they use psychology. They actually wrestle. Old school finishes. They don't cheat in front of the ref. I love that.
I agree.
I'll watch NXT a little bit. I can't watch Raw, and very, very small doses of AEW. Man, I have no clue where they're going.
Sometimes I watch the show and I don't either. It's bizarre. It is definitely bizarre. But what kind of wrestling can we expect at East Texas Wrestling? And when you guys cinch them up, as Mean Gene used to say, on August 2nd.
Well, we believe in, and the groups I'm involved with are old school wrestling. We actually wrestle, like the marquee says, professional wrestling. And yeah, there's some guys that do some fantastic flips and stuff, but it all evolves around wrestling holds, wrestling moves. So if you come out to Goosebeck, Texas, or Groesbeck, Texas, that's, that's the home of the late Joe Don Baker.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you a little trivia for you, James.
There you
go. It's going to be at the fairgrounds. They haven't had wrestling in a long time. They are excited about it. Earl Hebner's going to be at the meet and greet, as I understand.
Wow.
I don't know if he's going to be involved in any roughing any matches, but my understanding right now, he will be at the meet and greet. And we're going to have a 6-man tag. We're going to have a regular tag match. We're going to have a lot of singles, and we're going to have the ultimate battle royal.
What makes it the ultimate battle royal?
Because I'm putting it together.
There you go. That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear how that turns out, and I won't be there, but I hope everybody goes and gets their tickets. I'll have the links and all the information about the card on the interview file when I post this. I do want to thank you for taking so much time. I know I went a little long with you, but I do appreciate it.
Hey, James, before we go, can I give out a shout-out to a very good friend of mine?
Sure.
Tori Partey. She has just been a blessing to me. She's a young little girl, 18. She's been confined to a wheelchair. Her mother, Misty, and Matt, I just love these people. They've just touched my heart. They're such good people. I love them to death, and she's a Rod Price fan, so, why can't you? You got to love her for that.
Yeah. Anybody that's a Rod Price fan is a friend of mine. Absolutely.
But she has a little YouTube. Tori Loves Wrestling, and I encourage you to go on there. It'll touch your heart, and I just really care about these people, and they're such a blessing in my life.
All right. Well, I did lie a little bit. I have one final question for you.
No, we're done. No.
I know you hit the ring. I know you hit the gym a lot. I know you try to stay in shape. I know you've had a lot of back issues. Do you miss it? Do you still have the itch to at all get in the ring and wrestle?
Yeah, that mind says, "Oh, you can do it one more time," and then the body says, "Stop listening to the mind. We're done." I do miss it. I football and wrestling were such a huge part of my life, and I'm so thankful the Lord has allowed me to still be involved with wrestling as long as I have been. And, if I could do it all over again, James, I would just do it harder.
Very cool. It's very cool. I always like to, whenever I hear your name mentioned on shows, I always try to clip it and send it to you. I know Taz about a year ago mentioned you on one of the AEW shows, and I'm like, oh, here's a clip. And that was cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. It's always good to remember.
I appreciate you, man. I want to thank you again for spending so much time with me, and I will definitely be in contact on Facebook, and I'll let you know when I get this up and out there.
Please, James, I appreciate you, brother. You're such a good guy, man. I love you. I pray for you every day. You and your family. I know you've had some health issues, and
yeah,
I know the Lord will get you through.
Yeah, that was Bell's palsy about a year and a half ago, and that was no fun. Yeah. I was.
I'll bet, man.
I was listening to myself with the interview that we just posted with Karrion Kross, and I was listening to myself, and I overdo my P's. Everything's got a "pa" now to it. Now it's like, I think I'm overdoing it because I'm like, look what I could do. I can move my lips now. But
hey, nothing wrong with that. Overdo those P's, brother.
Well, God bless you. Best of luck to Tammy. I'm sorry to have taken you away from her for so long. How is she doing, by the way? Is she all right?
Yeah, she's for me, when I knew when I was hurting, for me, I put off surgery so long. I tried to go as long as I could without getting it done, and I was so miserable up to then. But she's gone through all the shots. She's gone through all the injections with nerve burns. She tried to do everything she could to avoid the surgery, but her back's worse than mine, and it's going to be a major surgery for her But I appreciate anybody out there. Keep her in your prayers.
All right. Well, I certainly will keep her in mind. And again, thank you so much, and I'll be in contact.
Thank you, James. I appreciate it.
This is Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Oh, for us.
Featuring the interactive interview.
Interactive interview.
Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Interactive interview.
Interactive interview. Oh, yeah.
Formerly The Blaze.
The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze.
The Blaze.
The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze rock.
Yo, Maniacs, so what you gonna do when Blaze of Mania runs wild on you?
On WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling
Epicenter.
The Wrestling Epicenter. Don't get off.
And now we shamelessly name drop from our history.
The Wrestling Epicenter would like to apologize for the following.
All right, everybody. Viva la raza. Viva la raza.
Hey, y'all.
Hello, ladies.
Hey guys,
We had a lovely conversation.
first lady.
Absolutely.
Oh, look at me. She's so kooky.
Be there.
Where else?
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Oh my God, you win! Wow, being interactive.
I was not shooting. Yeah, I almost missed my pants. Breaking neck. I got 2 words for you. I've heard a lot about you guys. Let's go. Excuse my language. Getting over the shot. Plenty of no. We're the many.
No nerves.
That was great. It's going to be cool. What it's all about. The purest point of
The living legend.
champion. Arrogant.
You're listening to me.
Instead of statement, I'm talking to you. Charisma.
So lonely without you.
In the land of extreme.
Testify. Nevermore. Interactive.
Interview.
I'm not just the best.
Interactive.
Interview with a plastic
You earned the right.
Nobody. You better keep listening. Thank you very much. Controversy creates cash. Professional
Made
wrestling.
in the USA, baby.
Memphis Wrestling. The guy on fire. I'm not going to talk to you, dummy.
We were sexy.
What a show.
One and only.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Interactive interview. We took care of the business. This isn't ballet. We are huge with this whole. You're where it's at. You better recognize who's the best. Make sure to tune in each and every week. I'll come out of your computer, knock down your door, and turn it on for you. Or else I'm going to kick your stinking teeth in. And that's the bottom line.
Have a nice day.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.